Welcome to Crafty Brewers Tales Behind Craft Beer, the podcast that will increase your enjoyment of craft and or local beer, however you want to phrase it, and your appreciation of the people behind it. We have traveled to the Sauganash neighborhood on Chicago's north side. Why would we do something like that? Because that's where Alarmist Brewing is. And we are going to go from grain to glass with Gary Gulley. He is the founder, the owner, the chief alarmist. He's the guy who does it all at Alarmist Brewing. We are glad you're here. Gary, we are also going to discuss a beer trend and, as always, share the stories that make each brewer unique. I'm beer drinker and hellraiser Brian Noonan, and all my opinions, for good reason, are strictly my own. Behind the camera is our executive producer, Cody Goff. With me, as always, is the high priestess of hops, the matriarch of malts, the femme fatale of fermentation, the siren of suds. She's the co-owner of Exit Strategy Brewing Company. Katherine Vallow, hello.
Hey, buddy. How are you?
I am dandy. I'm excited to be here in Sauganash, where in high school, I told Cody I used to buy Miller Lite 8-ounce 8-packs at the liquor store just under the viaduct there.
You know what I learned today? Sauganash was established in 1922. That's what the sign said.
We know a lot about Sauganash.
I didn't know that.
You didn't know that, and you got a business here?
I live in Lincoln Square, man.
Cody Starwipe. The more you know.
I'll tell you about Lincoln Square, maybe. I don't know.
All right. Well, let's get right into our myth.
Yeah, we're going to do that today. So our myth today is about cask ales, which in our lovely country we don't necessarily understand.
Explain what it is.
Sure. So the myth starts prior to explanation. The myth is cask ales are flat. It's ridiculous. If you knew what you were right, no, not at all. If you know what you're doing and what you're drinking, you know that cask ales are not flat. A cask ale is an ale that is served intentionally at a higher temperature with a lower rate of carbonation. They are beautiful. They are wonderful. They are not flat. Nothing is wrong with them. The brewery didn't screw up. Like, none of those things are true. Cask ales, you guys have got one.
Yeah, we have. I'm going to brag a little bit here.
That's why you're here.
Because I think we have probably one of the premier cask programs, at least in Illinois, definitely in Chicago. We're not the only ones who have casks. And I'm talking about breweries, of course. But if you look, you can't see. But there's 6 firkins, which is a type of cask over there. We just got another 9. So we have probably, we have a lot. That means we're really good because we have a lot of firkins.
Yeah.
Would you
get to say firkin as much as you want.
Would you say you're cask crazy?
10.8. Well, you guys love your alliteration. Firkins are, it's a 10.8 gallon keg, but they're completely different from our normal American
I kind of want to go
kegs.
pick one up.
So
I'm not going to.
Yeah, they're over there. But yeah, we do them, and we do them really well. And I'm just saying because we put a lot of work into researching and figuring out how to do it.
Right.
So we have 2 beer engines, cask pumps, and all that. But yes.
What sets it apart? What makes it different than the other taps you have here?
So normal beer that we have, it's already carbonated, right? The beer's carbonated, and CO2 pushes the beer out of the keg and out the spout of where you pour it. And there's all kinds of gas laws. You have to keep it all equalized and everything. Cask is very different. Before we had these modern CO2 systems, Cask came out. So a cask is a special keg, and originally it would be on its side, and it's got 2 holes. It's got the bung hole.
Ha-ha!
And it's got the keystone. No, that's not the hole. I forget.
We're at 3 minutes in. I would like to just say right now for the record.
We've said bunghole and firkin.
Right.
So normally you would tap the keystone, and that would be, and you would put it up on stillage, which means just a little stand. And you've probably seen this in some bars, and then they got to where they could pump it, and they keep it in the basement. So there's still a lot of pubs in England that do this. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a dying thing, but there are still some great breweries that only do that for draft. And so there's a few different things. Number one, you're not pushing CO2. The way it gets pumped up to you is you're literally pulling it with a pump. So you see, that's literally mechanical energy. I'm an engineer.
Yeah, we were going to bring that up.
It took 5 minutes to me bring that up. So, so you have to have some kind of energy to move it. So you use a pump. Oh, it drives people nuts. My wife's like, oh, really? So you pull a pump, and it pulls the beer in. Now, in the olden days, and they still do it a lot, is then it pulls air into the firkin.
Okay.
Through what's called a spile, which is just a piece of wood, and it kind of filters the air. But then we realized, well, that's a dumb idea because you bring oxygen in, and that's one of the enemies of beer.
Mm-hmm.
So we have what's called a cask breather, and then that's a more modern system. It's just a little low-pressure CO2 regulator. When you pull here, it pulls CO2 into the cask, a very low, just to blanket it with CO2.
Yeah.
It makes it last longer, and it tastes better. And so ours is kind of funny. We just have a chest freezer, and I have it at external temperature. It used to be my old kegerator at home, and we can fit 2 firkins in it, and we have a thing called a cask wedge, which is another modern thing, and we serve properly cask beer. So the way you carbonate those beers is you pull them before they're fully carbonated. You fill them in a firkin that's had the oxygen purged out, and then you put some sugar in it. Yeah. And there's still enough yeast because we don't filter that it will create another fermentation, and that's where you get a little bit of CO2. So a normal beer is probably 2.5 volumes of CO2, which is how we measure it. And a cask beer is probably 1.5, maybe, I think. So that's the difference. And it's served warmer. Yeah. And this is all just a throwback to it's a nostalgic thing.
Right.
But it also gives you a different way to taste beers. But not all beers taste great in that.
That's what I was just going to ask you. Out of all the beers you brew here at Alarmist, are there certain ones that you will cask and certain ones that just that's not
you
the
can
thing?
Do it with any. I mean, hell, we've done it with Le Jus. We just wanted to see what it would be like. It's not ideal. It works great, or at least traditionally. So we have an English ale here called Poppycock. And that's a proper English ale that I researched. It's a whole story about that. But that's meant to taste like you would have it in England. But yeah, there's certain beers. We do Pantsless on it a lot, and people like it. And there's also an experience with it that you get. It's not just about the beer; it's about the experience of it and stuff like that.
It's funny you bring up. When I was going over to England, people that I know in the beer industry are like, no matter what pub you go to, drink what's on cask.
That's exactly.
And
I think that is a true
unbelievable. It was really
the best
really
advice
good.
you can get, right?
Yeah, it was great.
It was great. I was just in Ireland. My wife had never been, so I took her like she's the one. She makes more money than I do. She took me technically in November, and then we went to Scotland to visit my best friend and his family for a few days. And it's funny because at least from what I could tell, Ireland doesn't do cask ales.
None.
And but the UK does, and by God, it was awesome. But they're not all. They still have normal CO2 beers, but there are certain breweries that keep that tradition. And
there's usually like one per pub.
Yeah, it depends.
I'm going to try that one and do it.
Yep.
So I'll tell you, this myth then. Busted. We busted it.
Busted
it
that
wide
myth.
open.
And the man who helped us bust that myth is once again Gary Gulley. He is the founder, the owner, the chief alarmist of Alarmist Brewing, which is at 4055 West Peterson Avenue in Chicago. Alarmistbrewing.com is their website. So many things to talk about, but you've already flexed that muscle and told everybody you started out as an engineer. How did you end up going from engineering?
Notice I didn't mention I didn't mention my GPA, just so we're clear on that.
Are you also a vegetarian or a vegan? Because I feel like that's usually brought up pretty quickly in conversations as well.
Oh, God, no.
Absolutely.
Right,
okay, great. Just,
Jesus.
CrossFit.
So he's going to do some parkour.
You ever done DMT?
Nobody knows what that...
Don't worry about it.
Okay, great.
Isn't that a drug or something?
Thanks for jumping in, Cody.
It's funny you mention it because I went back to Purdue a couple years ago for a football game, and one of these guys I hadn't seen in years, the first goddamn thing he said to me was he was doing CrossFit. And I'm like, all I could think was, wasn't that from like the 90s or something? And I thought it was funny, but anyway.
Engineers and CrossFitters, man.
Yeah.
Engineers love to be engineers. But you must not have loved it that much because at some point you decided, I'm done being an engineer. How does that... What's the transition, and how did you end up getting into beer? Because civil engineer sounds like it'd be a pretty good gig.
Where
like you could take your wife to Ireland.
So civil engineering is specifically structural engineering, is what I did. Is it's buildings, bridges. I saw that bridge in Baltimore. I'm like, oh, but dams, and there's different parts of it. And I never really enjoyed it, I guess. I was just good at math and science, but I was surrounded by people who were way better than me or worked harder. But I got my degree, and I learned a lot, and I'm not in love. Like, if I wanted to do engineering, I would do it, and I don't love the idea of engineering things.
Sure.
But what I do love is the ability to solve problems, and that is what I learned. And I don't necessarily mean some stupid math problem,
right?
Although I still love math, but like how to solve a problem. So that's what I say here all the time. I start out with a joke to my wife. She'd say something, and I was like, "Honey, I don't want." What'd you say? I said, "I don't want problems. I want solutions."
Yeah.
And then
I'm sure she loves that.
Did she smack you in the face?
Well, no, but she'd throw a frying pan. Let me tell you, those things are heavy, and I'm
they
like,
will move with
they
enough
will.
force.
Well, then I used to be able to calculate that. So,
well, you know what? Slipping.
But so that we do that, that's something I try to instill here is. What's the solution, right? Yeah. And so someone's saying, we're having this. I'm like, all right, what's the solution? And it doesn't necessarily a mechanical, or it could be anything, it could any kind of solution. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how my brain works.
When after you left Purdue, after you graduated, you went to Texas, right? And you were working down there. Is that when you decided, I've had just about enough of this? You met somebody who turned your... Tell me if this is true, because I found this hard to believe, and then I'll finish my question because I like to ramble. You were in an organization, a fraternal organization, shall we say,
yes.
while you were at Purdue,
yes.
but you didn't like beer.
No.
Is that correct?
No. No, okay. It was awful. Yeah, you're correct. Yes, right. Beer is awful. Yeah.
So, but then you changed your mind somehow in Texas because everything's bigger there. What drove you to this?
I was down there I was working on a nuclear power plant called Comanche Peak, which the whole thing is hilarious. And there was very little engineering, by the way. It was just I was paid well for the time, and I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do. And it's a long. I could ramble about this for a long time, but a guy I worked with started homebrewing, and I'm like, what the hell is that? And he's like, oh, you make your own beer. I'm like, why would you want to do that? It tastes terrible. But remember, this is 91 probably.
Yeah.
And it was terrible, right? Yeah. It was god awful out there.
Yeah,
and at the fraternity, we would have parties, and it would be kegs of. I remember when Coors came to Indiana.
Oh, that was big.
And we thought that was the greatest thing ever, right? It was the same shitty beer. And they had these things called Party Balls. Look that up. Coors Party Balls.
Came in the
do you remember
cardboard
those?
box. Yeah.
Yes.
You'd fill the box with
the
ice.
special tap. Yeah. I mean, what a great marketing
thing. That was terrific.
I got a party ball.
It wasn't actually a ball.
Yeah, it was round, but it wasn't quite a ball.
Right.
Yeah. But
also woof to that.
But the beers were terrible, and so I'm like, why would you? We drank screwdrivers, which makes me want to vomit now thinking about it. But
what a light, refreshing beverage for the evening at a party.
Yes. And the worst vodka. I'm just right now. I'm just thinking. But I'm down in Fort Worthless, and sorry Texas, but I ain't going back. And there was a Celis White was down there, right? So Pierre Celis, and he started Who Garden, and he was a great brewer, a terrible businessman, and through several things that happened, his daughter's living in Texas for some reason, Austin, and he opens the brewery there and makes Who Garden, but it calls it Celis White. Okay. And Texas beer laws were horrific back then. They're not really, they're better now, but they're still very archaic. But he was able to open this brewery, which I find really surprising. And Celis White, to this day, I think is the best beer ever made in the United States ever.
You heard it
better
here first.
Than Who Garden. I mean, Who Garden was the original Who Garden back then. They started shipping it here because my belief is because Celis White was actually doing quite well. Again, it went out of business, all this stuff. I think they sold it to Miller. I don't know what happened. They tried to reopen it recently and went under. But Celis White was absolutely phenomenal. I mean, an absolutely phenomenal beer. And they tried to resurrect it. A brewery in Michigan was doing it, and it just wasn't as good, which is really unfortunate. But that beer started the whole thing. When I had that, I was like, this is unlike anything I've ever had. And then Sierra Nevada, which was new. That's the first time I ever smelled hops. I remember opening a bottle of Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, and I could smell the Cascade. I didn't know what it was. I'm like, what is this? Mm-hmm. And, and there was a little pub. It's called the Pig and Whistle in Fort Worthless. And I don't know if it's probably gone, but it had like, at least at the time, some really good beers. And then that's kind of where it all started. So,
and then so how does going from that and your appreciation of now your eyes being open to say, hey, there's beer out there, how does that evolve into Alarmist?
God, I'll shorten the story as much as humanly possible. I work with, number one, I don't like working for people. I've decided. I'm not very good at that. I'm very bad at it. It doesn't matter. You can be the smartest person ever, but if you're not into it, and I'm not. I'm just saying, it was just like, oh boy, I can't do this.
It's a trend we hear with everyone.
And I worked in engineering, but it was. But then I got into technology and I started doing programming and then web development. In fact, I was just doing it this weekend, which is weird on our website. But I do like it when no one's making me do it. I like it. But so I got into technology. I worked for some big technology companies, and I just couldn't stand the layers of management and these stupid projects, and everyone would just do the work and do a great job. And I'm just there thinking, what is the point? But the point is you're giving me a paycheck. Right. That's the point. Right. But it didn't fit.
Didn't click.
Several things happened. Got let go. Well, I got fired, and my wife had just got diagnosed with breast cancer at the time. She's totally great now, but a lot of stuff happened, and then I basically told her, look, when you're done with this, I'm not working for anyone ever again. She's like, go for it. Now, and she grew up poor, so she didn't give a shit. So.
Had you been homebrewing all this time?
But there's so much money in beer. Come on, Gary.
That's a good point. I started brewing, early 90s, and it was the dark days. We used to, you would sanitize with bleach, and then it was awful. And you can go on and on about that. And then I stopped. A lot of people did this. We all stopped. Okay. And then breweries started opening in the 90s, and a lot of them closed because there was not a market. Distribution, the big distributors were corrupt. The big breweries, Anheuser-Busch, they were all corrupt. They were stopping people from being able. They were trying to,
crush the little guy.
Well, yeah, so much for free market. But anyway, but eventually, customers realized that there's actually good tasting beer out there, and started wanting to drink it. So things have unfolded. It's still unfolding. There's still a lot of repressive laws, including this state. But it changed, and then I started brewing again. Okay. And I don't even know how or why. I can't remember, but I joined the Chicago Beer Society, which is where Ray Daniels came from. And Ray's a friend of mine. He lives right over here. He's a friend of ours, and Randy Mosher, and got to know them. And I met so many guys who now own breweries.
Yeah. Oh, really?
That were starting out there. So it was a crazy time. And then all of a sudden we're all like,
it's time.
Should we do this? And oh man. And here we are. And now I'm a millionaire.
Wow.
You want to know why? Because there's a lot of money in beer.
Oh,
there's so much.
There's crazy amounts.
As Doug Hurst from Metropolitan, God rest our soul, he says, if you want to, let's see, what did he say? If you want to have $1 million in brewing, start with $2 million.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God. Yeah.
So what was the first beer something that you were brewing at home that made it to Alarmist? What was that?
Man, I had no idea what I was going to do. It's funny because a lot of breweries, they're like, I know exactly what I'm going to do. And I had no idea. I was like, I just want to brew everything. And as a home brewer, you can brew whatever the hell you want.
Sure,
right?
Yeah.
Sure. And I mean, the first beer I made was I called it Pantsless, much different than the Pantsless we have today. I mean, completely different beer. And I don't remember. I have to look up the recipe. It's probably really embarrassing. But and then over time, it just took a while to figure out what we wanted to do. Even today, it's hard to figure out what you want to do. If you're going to chase a trend, or you're going to hold true to yourself. What is that? Blah blah blah. So
what have you decided on that? Do you chase the trends? Do you?
Well, that's a whole nother discussion. We can have that discussion.
Well, we'll get into that.
Yeah. But Yeah, and eventually it came to Pantsless Pale Ale was the first the beer we came back. It's like our third top selling beer, and then Le Jus came along, of course, and then Crispy Boy, and so. But I am not someone who's going to die on a hill as to what beer we're going to brew. There are certain things I will not brew. I will never do a milkshake IPA, and thank God that trend has kind of died.
You cut right to the punch of one of our lists. This is great. We're going to be so out of whack. It's going to be amazing. Thank you for saying that because they're absurd.
Well, I think that's kind of died away. There's still people doing it.
Let's hope.
But if you want, whatever. Drink what you want to drink.
But at the same time,
but it's just not something we're ever going to do. Yeah. But it's funny because I used to blog about this, and I think at some point I said something about I wasn't going to brew an IPA. And so be careful about the hill you're going to die on.
Since you brought that up, you mentioned Le Jus already. The first hazy IPA to win a gold at the Great American Beer Show.
Yeah.
So when did Le Jus join your portfolio?
That is a crazy story. So all the credit for this goes to Aaron Dow, who's he is now at a brewery in Pennsylvania. It's a little brew pub called Golden Age Brewing. He moved out with his girlfriend, and she's from there. And, it really sucked, but we made fun of it. I know we have social media posts making fun of hazy IPAs, like with like the you get the work coming off your kettle and this guy, and I'm like, oh look, we made. I know we did this. And I thought that it was a beer that was just unfiltered with all the crap and all the yeast and everything. And I'm like, well, that's already been there's already German beers like that, but. Then I talked to BJ Pitchman, who used to be the brewer at Forbidden Root. He left the industry because he was smart, and I'm kidding. And but he talked me into it. We were smoking cigarettes, which I do not do very often, and I don't do it all now. But we were at Beer Under Glass, smoking a cigarette, drunk, and he tells me all this stuff. I'm like, God, okay. And then I saw the line. I remember this. I saw a line for at Beer Under Glass. For microphones, they had a beer called Check 1 2, and there was a line, and I looked at it, and I'm like, And the thing people need to really understand about breweries is it's a business, right? Yes. It is a business. We can all hold hands and gather around on how much we love beer and all these things, but beer costs money to make. You look at this equipment; this ain't cheap.
Sure is
the
not.
Rent,
yeah.
Everything.
Right? It's just not. You
everything.
Just don't get your
it's a business. You are manufacturing something.
Right.
It just happens to be something that's fun. But it's also something it's got a lot of regulations, and there's a lot of stuff you have to deal with, and there's a lot of competition because we all think, oh, beer's marvelous. And so that's something you gotta think about. So I told him, I said, we are going to brew a hazy IPA because it is taking off. And I want the doors to stay open.
Yeah.
And once I told him that, because it took me, I never said, hey, this is what we're brewing, and I go back into my ivory tower, and I have a lovely ivory.
Is it nice?
It's real
Right,
ivory,
like
by the way, covered in
wow.
ivory. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. I'm terrible with elephants.
Holy cow!
But
we are pro elephant. Gary's not.
That is
the damn thing.
That is two giant flexes. I'm an engineer, and I have destroyed the elephant population.
But we, so I said, we have to do this, and I'll be damned. Aaron went down the rabbit hole. He talked to everybody in Chicago that was doing this. He brewed with them. He researched it. And I think the first one we did was actually with Maplewood when they were just getting started. Okay. I can't remember. And we made I can't remember what the beer was. It was something with Pantsless. Juice. Well, they had Juice Pants. It was Juice Pantsless. And Aaron, first time we made it, and we had lactose in it, which we still do in Le Jus, which I wish we didn't, but we'll talk about that later, some other time. But he'd put a lot of lactose in this. So the foam, the glass was sticky.
Yeah. Right.
And I was like, and we didn't know. We're like, this is great. And then he kept working on it and changing it. And then basically the Le Jus we have today is just slightly different than what we originally get. And then, so we only been brewing that beer for 6 months. And I'm like, well, let's send it in to the, 2018 was the first year they did it, the GABF. And I'll be goddamn if it won. Like all of a sudden, we weren't there. And all of a sudden, my phone starts lighting up. And I was literally on my way to pick up Aaron because we were going to some beer festival on the south side. And it's like ding, 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 ding. And I'm like, congrats. I'm like, what are they talking about? People who were there, right? And I was like, what are they talking about? And everyone's like, we fucking won. And I'm like, won what? What are you talking about? I honestly didn't know what the hell they were talking about. And then I'm like, bronze or something? And I didn't realize. And I was like, and that changed everything.
That's amazing.
That saved us. Because it was tough. And, I brought in a bunch more, 3 giant tanks that we still have to this day. And that's been our top selling beer ever since.
Le Jus is one of the best beers out of the market. End of story. It is by far one of the greatest hazies that's out there.
You were very kind.
But to your point about like, are we going to chase this trend? Are we going to watch what's going on? And sometimes it isn't.
It's a very hard thing to figure out.
Right. And there's a balance between chasing it and then kind of forecasting it. Right. And like, if 1 or 2 of these guys are doing pretty well and we see that lines are forming and we like interest is peaked, maybe we don't want to hop right into it right now. But at some point, we're going to have to do the thing because the thing is here, whether we want it to be or not.
Yeah.
Right. We had a very similar conversation. We're never brewing a hazy. It looks like orange juice. This is ridiculous. Why do you want this? Blah, blah, blah. And then at one point it was like, well, shit. And I think that was the extent of the hazy conversation at our house was, well, shit.
Yeah.
And it's...
I think it's a fascinating, it's nothing, it's all very, biological, and there's some really interesting things about it. A lot of stuff that, still isn't understood. But it's absolutely fascinating that this beer came along and someone kind of did a couple things that you always said you should never do, and then you did it.
Right. It bucks a lot of like, this is how you actually brew, and then with the haze, you're like, nope.
You would ask me about like things that annoy me in the industry, and that's one of them. Is we hold these truths, right, to be self-evident, but no one ever questions things.
Okay.
You don't dry hop during high fermentation. Why are people I don't know what's going on.
I don't know. Sounds wild out there. Let's. This is a time where we are going to take our beer break, and why not? Since we've been talking about Le Jus, why don't we try Le Jus? And then we have to talk about the other. That's not the only award-winning beer that you've whipped up here at Alarmist.
Mm-hmm. There's a few.
You got a little magic going, so we're going to talk about that. But we'll take a quick. This is our beer break.
This is where Cody puts in his sweet piano, like old-timey piano jazz. It's great.
When he's not moving all his bags around.
Isn't it great we don't make something stupid like imagine we made yogurt. I'm like, now it's our yogurt break.
It's our yogurt break.
I'll go bring out our 4 flavors of yogurt.
This is where we have
and I'll slop them in a bowl for everybody.
That's
you know what?
Be great.
I could go for some yogurt.
A live culture. We're here with Gary Gulley, of course, at Alarmist Brewing in Chicago on West Peterson Avenue, 4055 to be exact. So now we are, this is where we taste things, and it's always brewery's choice what we're going to taste. But since we've been talking about Le Jus, which is your gold medal winning Hazy IPA, the first ever Hazy IPA to win a gold at the Great American Beer Festival.
Way back in 2018.
Listen, that's fine. It was the first ever. But like the first is the record breaker. Mm-hmm. So until somebody, nobody can beat that.
Yeah, that's the best part
Nobody
about
else
it.
But it was even
first.
a big deal when that category was announced.
Right.
Because I think the whole, a lot of the brewing world was like, wait a second.
Yeah. But no matter what, nobody can take that away. It doesn't matter if it happened in 1408. You were still the first. I don't know how you would be alive in 1408. There's no.
I was going to go Christopher Columbus.
That's
but
why
that's
that's
wrong.
1492. That's why I went different. Okay, so you also have
mead.
You also have won medals for Pantsless, which you have talked about a number of times. That won a bronze in 2020.
Yes,
and then Midwest Royalty, which is an American lager, won bronze in 21, and then came back, not satisfied to win 1 bronze, decided it was going to win another bronze medal.
So that's like a gold if you do 2.
2 bronze does, I think that's
bronze
equal.
actually do make a right, and 2 bronze make a gold.
You're the mathematician.
Not based on the value of the medal. I'm just saying good bronze is very cheap, but in our mind.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
All right. What's obviously everybody is trying to brew the best that they can, and we should sample one, and then I'll ask Mike, where would you like us to start?
Well, we could do usually want to start with the lighter fare and move forward. So you probably want that's Pantsless, right? So you probably want the Midwest Royalty, which you've already had, but
yes,
we'll pretend like we
Did you have
don't.
the Midwest Royalty? No. Okay.
He's got one. I actually, mine's almost empty, so there you go.
Perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel bad about using that when it is in my glass.
This is a lager that you made a bold statement.
Oh, I make a bold statement, as we know and have talked about all the time on the show. If it is dark, I want it. If it is funky, I want it. If it is the weirdest thing you've got on draft, I want it. If it's hazy, if it's happy, if it smells like outdoors, I want those things. What I don't ever gravitate toward is lagers ever. And it's just because I have always felt that lagers don't have the same body that ales do until I was at a beer festival and my little rig, my Jackie box, was next to an Alarmist Jackie box. And wouldn't
where was that? Which do you
it was at a Bug. It was at a Bug.
Was it still outside?
It was outside. We were outside.
I would have been. I would have been there, but hell, I don't remember.
No, I mean, to be fair, what I remember is this, because we were next to one another.
Okay.
Our breweries were next to one another.
Yeah.
And we just kept trading samples back and forth.
Nice.
Because no one could leave because there was one person you couldn't leave.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right.
So instead of going and trying other people's, you just gave beer back and forth.
Yep.
And I had Midwest Royalty for the first time, and it hit me like a ton of not bricks, but corn. It hit me like a ton of corn, like a bag of heavy corn.
Yep.
And I was like, this is the proper mouthfeel. I feel this is the proper mouthfeel for a lager. This is the proper body for a lager. This is the proper characteristic. This is everything that I've ever wanted in a lager is in Midwest Royalty. So what I did say when I walked in today was Midwest Royalty is the only lager on the face of the planet that I will drink more than one of because I love it so much.
That's a hell of a statement right
It is.
there.
It's you know what I like to go with a very bold statement. Yeah.
Wow. If you're keeping track of bold statements at home, hate elephants. Love Midwest Royalty.
I don't really hate elephants.
You just love ivory, which is
No,
a
I don't like
byproduct
ivory.
of
I don't really have I don't really have an ivory tower.
That's why I
Just
say at the
sounds
beginning,
good.
my opinions are all my
maybe
own.
the bold statement is I was once working on a nuclear power plant.
Yeah, we've
actually-
never
And I
like lagers.
we have never had anybody on this
Let me tell
show.
you a fun fact.
Yes.
This is a fun fact. You've probably never met anyone who has touched a nuclear reactor until today.
Really?
Now, let me explain.
Please do.
So this nuclear power plant in Texas, Comanche Peak, when we were there, there's two units, two reactors, two sides. They were getting ready to commission and get Unit 1 up and running, which had started in the early 70s, right? And I was there in 90s, so it'd been there a long time. We were working on Unit 2.
Okay.
So there had been so many. This is after 3 Mile Island, and a lot of people don't know nuclear power went to hell in a handbasket after 3 Mile Island. So, so they built this damn thing, the container dome, everything you see in a movie, and the reactor had been dropped in, and then they built the containment dome over it. So the reactor was sitting on the side, on the floor, not in where it's going to be. And it looked like something from a sci-fi movie. And I got a picture of me, and this is before digital. Somewhere I've got this on film of me next to this nuclear reactor. Nothing, it's not alive. None's ever been. Yeah, no, nothing. It's totally nothing. It's just a construction site at that point. And so I got a picture next to this thing.
Wow. All right.
Hugging a reactor.
It's
Amazing.
so weird. It's so
First
weird.
gold for a Hazy IPA. First guest to ever touch a nuclear reactor.
I gotta find it somewhere.
Yeah, please send it in. We'll put it into the thing.
You know what?
That would be great.
Shit, that means I gotta go through all these damn photos.
Oh, God. You see, kids' photos used to be printed on paper.
Yeah.
It was
You had
called
to
film.
Go to your photo mat in the
Oh,
mall parking lot.
Lord.
I
in
remember
heaven.
that. I
All
remember
right.
photomats.
All right, let's. So wait, one last question about Midwest Royalty. Katherine keeps mentioning corn. Is that a unique ingredient for lagers?
Well, so this is one of those hills that some people will die on and say, "Oh, we would never." These are called what we call adjuncts.
Yes.
And the original thinking was, well, it makes beer cheaper. And that's true to a certain extent. Depends what you do with it. For us, it's not cheaper. It's actually more expensive. The flaked corn we buy. Sure. Unless you are a large brewery who can buy corn and do all these cereal mashing processes. But at least my understanding is these things were used. German immigrants mainly come to the Midwest, and they're using the different ingredients we have, and they decide to use corn at some point. And corn is totally fermentable, it's used in whiskey and such. But it's nice because even Dan Carey of New Belgium, who that's my second favorite brewery. Until I opened this one, then they were my first. But even he has said on podcasts that he likes to lighten the body with some corn.
Okay. And
I believe he talks about that in several of the beers they make. And so corn it adds a flavor, which what I've noticed in beer judging competitions with the top beer judges in the country, they think it is DMS, which is an off flavor. And I'm like, no,
really?
It's corn. But anyway, don't get me started. But
we could do 8 hours with your "Don't Get Me Started" stories.
It lightens the body, and it gives it a little sweetness.
Yeah.
And there's too much. When we first brewed it, it had a lot more corn.
What does that do?
It just gives it more that it starts tasting more like corn, but not like gross.
Okay.
But it depends. It depends on what you're going for and what you think is good. And so we've been lightening, backing off on that a little bit. And the whole story is that if this had been left up to me, this beer would not exist. Right? I'm not taking any credit for this beer whatsoever. Okay. So Aaron, our original brewer, Aaron Dow, who won the gold, he and Trevor Hagen, who now is at Goose Island. Yeah. They were both brewing here, and between them and Ethan, my brewery manager, they decided they wanted to make a Miller High Life. Okay. And I think we talked about this earlier before we started. I'm like, nope. And they talked me into it. I'm like, okay, fine. And lagers weren't really. We've been doing Crispy Boy, but it wasn't really on my radar. And then they brewed this damn thing, and I drank it. I'm like, ugh.
Isn't that the
you guys were right?
It's so annoying.
And this is my favorite beer we make.
It's so good.
And if you go on the website, you'll see it says it's my. I'm not. This is my favorite beer we make.
It's just so good.
We love it, and I cannot take any credit for it whatsoever. These guys changed my view on it, and corn is a very interesting ingredient, and it really for this beer, it's a totally different beer if you didn't put corn in it. And there are people, there's breweries that only want to follow the German Reichsgebot or whatever, and that's fine. I mean, you pick your path in this business. Sure. But I think this is a worthy ingredient to add. And,
really good.
Yeah,
and I'm going to add, too, so I'm a slow drinker when we're doing this purposefully.
Yeah.
Because I feel, and again, I say it all the time, we serve beer too cold. This country, across the board, we serve it too cold. You don't get enough of the characteristic. This is you think about serving a lager warmer, and people are like, "Oh no, they're supposed to be so cold." No, as this is warmed up in the hour that I have been nursing it, it's incredible.
Thank you.
It's just kind of blossomed and it's opened up, and it's a little more corny and grainy and fieldy.
Well, we also use 6-row malt, which is a kind of real quickly. Most malt is 2-row, and 6-row and 2-row are a family of barley, I guess. And 6-row is an old variety that you had to use for something called diastatic power, and to convert corn and rice that wouldn't convert into mash, and those days are gone. But these guys wanted to do this to see what it would do. So we have bags of 6-row malt, which isn't grown as much, and not because we need it, but it adds it's got more husk in it, and it adds a little of that grainy flavor to it. And I was like, shit, because I didn't want to put that in there either. And so they vetoed me, and it turned out great. So I'm a huge fan. So that all those things, it's weird because when I started this brewery, I was like, I'm going to make Belgian, I'm going to make Hoegaarden and Cellus White, and I'm going to brew that Miller shit, and here we are, and that's my favorite beer now.
And
so.
it's great, and again, it won the bronze in 21 and 22. Pantsless is here. I've had some Pantsless. What is it? We know the difference between lagers and ales. What makes a pale ale?
Oh, that's that depends.
Too long a story?
No. It's if you from a brewery side, you probably look at it more from a judging perspective, and when you and those things, and hell, now I think there's a what do you call it, a double or a pale ale, a heavy pale ale, what they call it.
Oh, is there now an imperial?
A strong pale ale, sorry.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, at what point are they? And,
That's just when
and that depends where you, and then you have to be strategic about how you're entering that beer. Like, where is it going? Because a lot of beers could be in different categories. Not stout, obviously, but different. I mean, it depends again. But so this was meant to be a pale ale, so lower alcohol, meaning less malt, and then we so this is I'm gonna announce something that really important. So up until about, in fact, I don't know if this is the new keg yet. I don't think it's the new keg yet. It might be. Up until the most recent batch that we packaged, we were only using Mosaic for the dry hop and everything. Okay. But we decided to start adding some Simcoe, pull back Mosaic and add Simcoe, which, I mean, I think Simcoe is the best.
It's a great
of
one.
all the IPA hops.
Yeah.
That's the best.
Really?
To me.
All right.
And I mean, I think part of it is just, there's so much Mosaic in Citra, and we use it in Le Jus.
Yeah.
And I do like
someone
Simcoe, once told me the Mosaic and Citra are the auto tune of beer, and I'm like, that's not wrong, but they're so delicious.
Yeah.
But I think Simcoe is, and Pliny the Elder made Simcoe famous, and we did it. Ethan decided to do it, and it has changed this beer for the better. So we are going to change it. So I haven't had beer for 10 days. Well, not much because I was sick for a week. But it adds depth to it. And I honestly don't know if this is because my palate is so out of whack right now.
The Mosaic I get.
It's so much more interesting, I think.
It's great.
So I
love a
Simcoe's like Simcoe's like it's like people call it like a cat took a piss in a pine forest, I guess, and I don't know.
It's right up your alley.
I love a nice descriptor.
It's a weird. I mean, it is. It's weird, but
I love it. I love a good descriptor. I love pale ales because they
definitely makes it. So the big question we always ask ourselves is: IPAs as a category always outsell pale ales, and I believe so. I think that's right. And you can look on Google that shit. So this beer is almost an IPA. So we've always talked about, well, what if we made it an IPA? We've changed it and then call it Pantsless IPA, but now you're on the business side, right? Now you got to deal with marketing and perceptions and what does that mean, and all that stuff. So
you get people that are like, well, I don't do IPAs because IPAs are too bitter, but I will do a pale ale. You're like, come on.
Well, that's another possibility.
Please.
Yeah.
When you say you could change,
get me started.
Yes, don't get me started.
For the uninitiated, myself included, what then would you have to do to it to take it from pale ale to an IPA?
Well, I mean, probably just add some malt, which would increase the gravity, which would eventually create more alcohol, more body, and that's really the main thing you would do. And yes, you could, and then you would increase the hops to go with that. And by hops, that means bittering. Excuse me, but when you say hops, there's the bittering side and there's the flavor side. Right. So, so yeah, that's something. But right now, we're just gonna leave it as is because we've been talking about this for 5 goddamn years. So I don't know if it's gonna change anytime soon.
So there's no rush.
But I will say, as the new version makes out to the market, I think it is so much better, than the past. Because me personally, I don't drink a lot of Pantsless because I had a lot of it when we first started brewing it, and it's the oldest recipe we have that we still make.
Oh wow!
And I got burned out, but the new one, I'm like, okay, I'm digging.
It's still. I mean, this is delicious.
All right, let's get to Le Jus because you mentioned that when you first started brewing this, you had a lot of lactose in it, and the glass was sticky. Cody, what did you want to ask about all this lactose? There was, or the former amount of lactose that was in.
You made a comment. You said something like we make it with some lactose in it, which I wish wasn't the case, but that's another story.
Oh yeah. Oh, I said it. Yes, I did.
You said it.
So why did you mention that you didn't like that there was lactose in it?
So when these beers first came out, that was sort of everyone put lactose in it, and so lactose is milk sugar, and the reason you use it, and it's been used for years, like in if you hear of a milk stout.
I love Le Jus.
So a milk stout has lactose, and the reason I call it milk stout is it's got lactose is milk sugar, and milk sugar doesn't ferment with beer yeast. That's the whole point. If you used regular sugar, it would ferment, and you'd have more alcohol. Lactose does not ferment, so that sweetness stays behind.
Okay.
So, and again, this is like when we were like doing, I'm like, what the fuck are people talking about? Why would you put this in your goddamn beer? And it's funny because there are people, again, die on these damn hills is, you should never put lactose in a hazy, and those, but it is. I will say the trend is dying off.
I think the amount is absolutely diminishing.
And we are definitely
like the
pulled
amount
it
of
back.
lactose that we're seeing. Yeah.
And if I had my druthers, we would not put it in there at all at this point, just because, in case people are, are lactose intolerant and everything. But that's our top selling beer by far.
Yep.
And if we change that, what's that going to do? Now, Beezer, our friends at OIB, has no lactose in it. And that is a very, they won the gold medal the next year, which is insane.
They sure did.
So you got the same style with no lactose, and it won. So it just depends. But,
This
for
I'm
us,
sensing a trend here at Alarmist where you are the boss, and yet the Brewers are pretty much ignoring you at every turn to the better. It's
if
not like they're ignoring
if they were
you
standing here right now, they would say really rude things about me that we would not be able to put on the podcast.
It's like, I didn't want to have this beer.
We were just like a
everybody
bonus
loves it.
episode.
I didn't want to do this.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
didn't want to put lactose.
Yeah.
Well, we won with
Yeah,
lactose.
yeah.
So,
Well, yeah. So we put the lactose in, and as time has run on, we definitely want to, we will at some point probably start pulling it back a little bit over time. So.
It's incredible.
Beers, just so people know, like small brewers like us, the recipes change all the time. It's very rare that you
look right at this. Say it again.
Recipes change all the time.
time.
And it could be a whim. It could be, it is. Sometimes
well,
it's a whim. It's like, we should do this. You're like, oh, okay.
All right.
But you
It
got to
could
be
be
careful.
like-
You got to be careful.
You are just a little shy of one malt, and you got something else that's pretty comparable off to the side. Yeah, I mean it's.
And sometimes you get happy accidents with that.
You know what?
Or you
There's
can't tell
nothing
the
I like
difference
more
at
than
all.
a nice happy accident.
another. Go ahead.
Yeah. So that's the Lejeune of today, it's still very close to the original one, but it has changed a bit. And Sierra Nevada, I mean, that pale ale has changed a lot over time. I mean, that's just the way things go. So
It's so beautiful.
Well, something that started out.
I wish we sold as much of this as
Sierra Nevada.
Then
Listen,
then I would have an ivory tower.
That would be great.
And a dragon
Fake ivory.
guarding
Fake
your
ivory.
Fake ivory. All right. This another thing that the Brewers seem to have suggested. Lejeune, very, very popular, as you said, the best-selling beer. First, I'm going to say it again because the first hazy IPA to win the gold at Great American. But then on April Fool's Day, you said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to make Jus Clear.
And everyone Brewers do this thing.
This is Jus Clear, and this is Lejeune. And as I said to Gary, I'm not an expert by any sense of the word, but I could tell which was the clear and which was the hazy.
Just by looking at it.
Just by looking
and I
at
said
it.
You could be a Cicero.
That's right. I'm a big shot.
Do you also have those flashcards?
Well, you never know what I have. I do a lot of prep. Okay. How did this go from we're going to do a social media joke to,
It's
hey,
This
guess
is
what we're going to do?
So, one thing that I think we're known, and the people in the industry know of us, is we have a pretty robust sense of humor. A lot of which cannot be ever posted on social media. But Ethan Summer runs the brewery here. He goes, hey, I got a good joke for, and I'm like, what? And he's like, let's do like a clear version of juice. I'm like, okay. He goes, but then we actually brew it. And I went, yes.
Oh, this one you agreed with.
Oh,
all
yes.
right.
So what's funny is it's like if you've ever, you work with a group of people, you can start creating and you start bouncing ideas, and that's something we do really well here, I think. And that's kind of one of our strengths, and one of the things that keeps us sane. So we're like bouncing. I'm like, I'll make sure our label supplier, BevWrap, I'll call Ralph and make sure that we can get clear labels. I knew we could, but I wanted to make sure. So I do a lot of the label stuff, which is apparent. But we took I didn't bring a can. Anyway, we took the label, removed all the background, so you see the can through it.
Oh, jeez.
So we posted that we, like that. He was like, oh, we did the world. I think we called the world's first clear hazy IPA, and I'm sure there's other breweries already done this, and we're not like, we're not Nobel Prize winners here, but we actually brewed it. So the people didn't know that. And so then we posted it, and it has been our top selling beer in the tap room since we put it on.
Really?
I haven't checked today.
It's
funny.
So good.
And
it doesn't have lactose
good.
because that would be weird because it's not a hazy.
Right.
Yeah, there's no. But
so what's the difference? Because obviously we could see the difference.
Well,
and the lactose is
the
one
haze
thing.
comes from there's a specific strain of yeast that we all use Omega yeast, which is really close to here. They're local. We're like really lucky that we literally have a beer yeast manufacturer in Chicago. It's
driving
weird.
Distance. It's so
because
great.
before they were here, you would have to have it shipped overnight from either cold ship from Colorado or Oregon or California. And Omega, I go pick it up. And so, I mean, you can see their yeast in there. So they have a particular strain that everyone uses for hazy, as far as I know. And it's an English yeast strain. And I believe it is a Boddington's. The Boddington's strain, I believe it's Genesis. And it reacts with like different proteins, and I'm making up right now. So there's this thing called biotransformation, which some people say is true, some people like whatever. But what happens is it makes it hazy, and it's not just yeast sitting there. These compounds get created, and the craft beer conference they've had lectures on this and the stuff they discovered. So the idea was, well, it's hazy. These have flavor components, and that's what makes it taste like that.
Okay.
Right? But Omega, who are very smart people, they've taken that yeast strain and they've genetically modified it, and they have a new strain where you can actually get the same flavor without it being hazy. Which now completely, I'm like, wait a minute. I went to a conference in Denver, and they said that's not. So again, this is one of those things like everything changes. So
all hail Lance.
So yeah,
I mean, truly, Lance is the best.
He is the best.
Yeah,
and so Lance owns Omega.
Yeah, sorry, Lance come on the show.
And so yeah, he's great and very smart. The whole team's very smart, and so that's the next wave probably of this is you get these intense flavors.
Yeah.
But without that haziness, so
yeah, there is a difference in taste between the hazy and the clear, and it's
so
really
clear.
Yeah,
well, so we wanted to make sure it was a good. It wasn't like it's just a joke.
No, it's a good,
for us.
really
It was also
beer.
an experiment. Like, well, what would that taste like? Now we use a different yeast strain. We used California Ale / the Sierra Nevada. Everyone uses for IPAs. Yep. It's the same one we use for Pantsless, and that's what we used for it.
Okay.
Took out the lactose, made a few little tweaks here and there to make sure it was clear, and there you go. So
very nice. Well, it has been. We could talk to you for hours, Gary, because and I'm not saying that just to blow smoke. Yeah, listen, Bridget.
That's my wife.
He's fascinating.
See,
he's fascinating.
See that?
It's okay. We can.
I don't know if he takes the garbage out and does stuff around the house, but
that's
here,
my son that's supposed to do
this, fascinating. Now we're going to move on. And again, this is Alarmist Brewing. If you want to come up and try all the award-winning stuff that we've been talking about, it's at 4055 West Peterson Avenue in Chicago, alarmistbrewing.com. The tap room is really cool. You have a big patio
beer
now
garden,
that things are getting warmer.
Yep.
You're kid-friendly, you're dog-friendly, you're
Yep.
elephant-friendly. Every
Love
species
elephants.
is allowed here at Alarmist,
Yep.
which is great.
Yep.
Now we quickly want to segue into
Final questions.
the final question. Listen, the good thing about this is normally we have to ask final questions, and the brewers are like trying to think. Final questions now. All right.
I'm sorry. I'm watching Cody point to this.
Do the final questions now. The good
Serenity
thing is
now.
it's not going to take much time because the hill you'll die on. You've already mentioned that a million times. Do you want to reiterate the hill?
Do it, please.
Is there a hill you'll
because
die
it's so
on?
great.
In what regard? Like in general or what?
Yeah.
What beer will you not brew?
What beer will you not brew?
Oh, for us, it was like milkshake IPAs was always something. I think for most styles of beer, it's an interesting experiment to see what you can do with it. A lot of people are doing sours, kettle sours, and we've done them. They're okay. It's not my favorite beer, and they don't. For us, they don't sell really well.
Calm
But
down.
some people they do. But I think most styles are worthy of trying. Not all. And I also, the one thing that for me personally and for us as a brewery, since I own the damn place, is that
not according to the Brewers, obviously.
Yeah, they'll tell you that too. Is we don't want to make the trend I personally don't like is when people, the beers are being made, they're meant to taste like something that isn't beer, right?
Oh.
And what does that mean, right? Because you could argue that Lejeune doesn't taste like beer. But I'm talking about beer. It's like it's meant to taste like breakfast or a pot roast
or
ramen. You said ramen, and I just like why does beer need to be the vehicle to give you the? I mean, whatever. I mean,
want beer that tastes like beer.
I mean, that's just me. But you know what? Who knows? I mean, things are changing, but I do believe in the purity of beer. Overall, although in Germany they would punch us in the face for putting lactose
in the face and other parts, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but those Germans will punch anybody for anything.
They really will.
Kicking the
They
ground.
really will.
Yeah, they're rough. Shout out Germany, love you.
But that's just, I mean, I don't know. That's just what but we try to keep an open mind. But there are just certain things we're like, well, we're just not going to do that.
That's actually true.
Speaking about your open mind, allegedly, there is a style of beer that you brewed that you will never brew again, and it happens to be one of my favorite styles of beer.
Brown ale.
Yes.
There's like 3 of you in the entire country.
Well, I am a unicorn. We're unicorns. I love brown ale.
Apparently is it Midwest Coast?
Oh,
Midwest
American
Coast
Brown's
makes
a
a
great
nice
one.
They have a brown ale that like does really well from them.
know, that's very good.
And you know what? They get to own that whole goddamn market.
What
as far as I'm
is
concerned.
what's the problem? What's your issue with me and Katherine and the other person that likes them?
I'm gonna tell you. Here's the in general. Here's the deal. Dark beers in general will not sell as fast.
No.
Ever.
Nope.
Right.
Not even a
Now
little.
it doesn't mean every beer you make has to fly out the door.
Right.
But you also don't want a beer that's sitting around for 6 months in your tap room.
Right.
That makes sense.
And you're also, we're trying to make money, right? And
Yes.
and it doesn't mean making money over the space of 3 years. It's making money.
You're not playing the long game
There's
with
something
the brown
called
ale?
cash flow. Look it up. And so,
Wait, is that a thing in beer?
So, yeah. So,
I wouldn't know.
So, I mean, anytime that we ever have a dark beer, and that doesn't matter if it's a lager, doesn't matter if it's a stout, it is always, for us, the slowest moving beer.
And
always.
yet, out in the tap room, you
Yes.
have is Bamberger.
Yes.
Which is is this the Schwartz beer?
This is well, we have All in Favor. That's a Schwartz beer.
All in Favor
which is
is
something we'll
Schwartz
probably
beer?
never brew again.
Okay.
A lot of other people do that, but because again, it's a very in the season maybe,
Can I smell your beer?
Okay.
but it's not.
It
doesn't.
It's really good.
Well,
with Bamberger.
thank you. I
love
think
it.
Bamberger's interesting because Bamberger's a smoked ale, a Rauch beer.
That's it. Yes,
and we think those are fantastic. But the problem
Right.
is that's one of those beers that a lot of people don't like. When you taste it, it's got this chemical family called phenolics, and it can taste like a Band-Aid or a hot dog.
I didn't
None
get
of
either
those
one
things
of
are
those.
coming through. None of
I
those
didn't
are
get
Well,
coming through.
we had an untapped review for Toke, which is our lager, smoked lager, which has
incredible.
with just a little bit of smoked malt. And someone on Untapped, which I never check anymore, by the way.
Good.
But back in the day, someone said it tastes like hot dog water, and that is going on a T-shirt at some point because we think that's very funny.
You know
Yeah.
what? If you would
Who's
like to-
drinking hot dog water though, that they can make that comparison?
Man,
Here's the
when you
question
grew
I
up,
have
when
for
you grew
you.
up like my wife did, I bet they drank hot dog water.
All right.
Sorry, Bridget.
We're sorry, Bridget. Brian loves you like he loves Germany.
No,
You just said
I'm
Perhaps to
sorry
Germany.
that Bridget had to drink hot dog water.
we don't know that that's for.
They're in Iowa. They don't know. So anyway,
Anyway.
you were saying?
What
Anyway.
I'm saying is we should do a collaborative Crafty Brewers and Alarmist T-shirt about hot dog water, and I am happy to design that,
That
for
would
us.
be really funny.
Right, and then we can
Tastes
I'm
like
not-
hot. Quote, tastes like hot dog water.
Tastes like
I'm
hot
not
dog
mad
water.
at this.
Well, when we had just so you know, like when Lejeune first started getting, I think he got the medal, and then I think Aaron, our brewer at the time, he sent a link and he said, "Hey, we finally made it, you guys. Someone had given it overrated." On Untapped, which is why it's on the can now. It says overrated. And that's how we knew we made it, because it's like before no one gave a shit, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden we're overrated.
Nice.
And
Untapped can suck it,
and one time, and again I never check it, but when someone said,
but they are not going to sponsor
someone
us.
said it's really good, but not a gold medal winner though. And one of my
Wow.
my guy used to work here, Joe. He replied, he goes, Yeah, but it is though.
Yeah.
It literally won a gold medal.
How many medals have you won, sir and/or madam?
Well, it's one of those things we just avoid. I don't look at it.
This is going to be a long one.
Well, I just say, I mean, back to for us, like dark beers, they're not my favorite to drink. They're most people's non-favorite to drink.
Well, those people are not you.
And
present company excluded. Those people
us,
are not
you
bright.
know. And remember, we're a business, right? And you know, if Lejeune, if we couldn't make anything else but Lejeune, right? We would just have to do that, right? Because you know we're a business. I have investors. And that's the way it is, right? You can sit there and it's beer. You don't have to worry about that shit.
you
have to
do.
worry about that
yeah,
shit.
you do.
So
I'm not even in the business, and I know
this is
you
a
have to work.
business.
You and I were talking about how you and I would just give away the bar. I mean, if I was behind the bar,
Right.
I'd just be like, "You want a beer? You want a beer? You want
Well,
a beer?
that's
You
what
want
my
a beer?"
wife would do. That's why she doesn't get to do it.
Bridget,
Mother
It's
Teresa.
a business.
Okay, come on, Bridget.
Listen.
Please.
Are we? What else is on our beer?
No, here's
What's
the
that?
thing.
You just got one more question.
Let me
Don't worry
ask.
about that
Well, this
street
is
anymore.
an adjunct question to the second question. So does that mean like Bamberger won't come back? These kind of styles won't come back?
No, it doesn't mean that. It just means we're going to cut them back. And this is one every year you learn something new.
Yeah.
And like I love Bamberger. I love I love
beers
smoked beers, and I think they're great. But the problem is, and this has been a problem that we've had over time, and a lot of breweries I think probably do this, is you're not brewing for yourself. You are brewing for your customers.
Louder for the people in the back.
And, you know, one of the things that drives me nuts here in the brewery is they'll say, well, I took Bamberger and all the other brewery guys loved it. Like, they're not our customers,
Yeah.
right? They're not paying my bills. That's not how it works, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you've got to make beer that sells and people want to buy, so you can keep the doors open.
So are there some that you would make like on a smaller amount and go, okay, this is going to be limited to a few.
So our brew house is 20 barrels.
Okay.
The smallest we can do is 15. We could try 10, it doesn't work. So we could do 15. So what we're going to do, actually, we came up with this about a month ago. Well, I basically said, look, from going forward, any of these one-off beers, we're going to do 15 barrels.
Okay.
And these one-off beers are beers that we're only selling here, maybe a little bit out to the market, but that takes time. That's a whole nother. You could do a whole episode on distribution and off-premise. It's a nightmare.
No,
but
thank you.
in the tap room,
Pass.
you know, the beer needs to be fresh. It needs to sell. And it has, you know, I keep talking about velocity, like it needs to sell. And we're not going to brew a beer that sits around.
Yeah, no,
that's pointless.
But have you done these beers in the past? Mm-hmm. So
we've done Bamberger twice.
Okay.
The problem is we kind of we had Bamberger and Toke, which is our lager, our Helles lager, that's slightly smoked.
Yeah.
And the other problem specifically with smoked beers is that flavor starts trailing off, like hot flavors.
Right.
Yeah.
Goes away.
It starts. Not only does it go away, but it starts changing.
And
then it does start tasting like
it gets a little
hot
bit
dog
weird.
Band-Aid stuff. It's weird. That's
There's
my
a weird,
perception of it. It's different, and it's not as good.
No.
And that's why we didn't enter them. We didn't enter them in the World Beer Cup because we had brewed them back in the fall, and they weren't fresh enough, so I didn't enter those beers.
Do you find, and I know I keep saying this, do you find that darker beers do better in the, like even, this is a dark beer, but it's very light as far as, but people perceive drinking darker beers in the winter and stuff?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Now, just, I mean, like I said, I guess it was November, but anytime I've been to Ireland, I mean, I'm drinking only Guinness.
Yes, I know.
And there's all these, small breweries opening, and I'm like, sorry, I'm drinking Guinness.
Yeah, all day, every day. All right.
Cody's now starting to
Drinks
send you
off
messages.
the clock.
Drinks off the clock.
What does that mean?
It says
I don't
ask
know.
what up top.
Oh, I'm getting to that right now.
Oh,
this is
there
the
you
final
go.
the final question. When you're not here, if we know it's not Miller High Life, what do you drink just chilling at home?
Wine.
What? Really? Very nice. Okay.
I love wine. So
red or white, or does it
well,
matter?
it's funny because I never really drank a lot of white wine, and then my wife and I, we were married for a while, Bridget and I, we went on our honeymoon to Portugal in
That'll do it right there.
2001, and we had Vino Verde for the first time, which wasn't, you could barely find it here at the time.
No.
What is Vino Verde?
I'm a wine girl.
What is Vino Verde?
I'm a wine. So we're going to do a spin-off episode where Gary and Katherine drink wine.
That's fine.
That would be great. My wife would love. We'll do it.
This sounds wonderful.
Bridget, you love
bonus
Bridget.
content. Everyone, get
So
ready.
Vino Verde it means green wine, and it's a
Slightly
variety.
effervescent. It's just the
It's
most-
protected. It's a protected. I don't know what you call it, variety in Europe and
Yep.
Portugal, and it's a wine. It's a light, refreshing, slightly carbonated, and I mean slightly carbonated.
There's a
white
tiny
wine.
bit of effervescence
There's
to
a
it.
tang.
It's a lower alcohol. It's so
and it
pretty.
reminds me, and it's delicious. And now it's all over the place here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can
So
find
that
it.
got me into white wines, and then Sauvignon Blancs from New Zealand, which of course but those remind me of like they got that hop, like they got intense.
The grass
Like
that comes
California
through
is
on that,
not
like
my
the grass,
thing.
the grapefruit,
Now
the
I am
pith.
not.
Yeah.
I am not an expert. I am not a sommelier by any stretch of imagination. My favorite are red wines, and when we went to Italy back when we used to travel before kids and brewery,
They ruined
we
everything.
went to Italy, and my son was 2, and Bridget was pregnant with the second child, Declan. That was not planned. And I had to
Sorry,
drink.
buddy.
I had to drink for 2.
Sure.
And
Why not?
I mean, I drank the living hell out of every red wine I could find.
Nice.
And so I in the winter, I'll drink a lot of red wine. In the summer, I'll go. But here's
Very
the
nice.
problem:
Yes.
I have no self control. You can call me an alcoholic. You can call me whatever you want. But
would
if there's
never.
a bottle
I
of
would
red
never.
wine, I can drink the entire bottle with no problem. So I have to. I don't have it in my house a lot. If I'm cooking, it'd be nice to have a glass of red wine. I'll drink the whole damn thing.
Yeah.
So I've got to be really careful with
Okay.
that. So
All right.
Wine
Cody,
is amazing. Stay tuned for this bonus content.
Cody doesn't want us to f with the with his format. So what was your behavior? We had a behavior. You Joe, don't look
sorry,
at him
I
that way.
don't- no,
he's the
I'm not.
executive
I'm-
producer.
I'm
the man
very,
wants
no,
it.
I wasn't trying to do any
Don't
of the.
mess with it. I'm reading off.
Gary!
Those
I don't
Is that
think
what
it's, I don't think
usually-
that. I don't think mess is spelled F-U-C-K. I mean, I'm
Well.
from Indiana, and we're not good at spelling, but I'm pretty sure that's how you
I
spell it.
allow everybody
I
else to swear
don't-
on the podcast.
You have a reputation.
Well, no,
to
I
keep.
also have like
He's got radio brain.
I have radio brain.
Right. Good
So
for you.
once there's a mic on, I don't because once the mics go off, I swear like I'm getting paid.
Yeah.
But
There's money
no
in it,
here. So
probably.
I like everybody else swearing because then I don't have to. So don't fuck with his content.
Oh my God! Sorry, mom. Sorry, mom.
So
Sorry, mom.
what is
So
beer behavior?
We were going to talk about trends in the beer industry that we've been noticing, and we
Oh, right,
alluded to
sorry.
this earlier on when we started to. I'm terrified of Cody now. Like he had eyeballs that were going to cut through my soul. I'm
I'm very
super
connected.
scared of Cody right now. So everyone that's like, "Oh my God,
Cody-
your producer seems so nice."
Cody
His
threw
eyeballs
down on
cut
this one.
through my body.
You know
It
what
was-
this reminds me of? Did you guys ever do what we in Indiana we call it the John Wayne hour, where you would do a shot of beer every minute for an hour? Did you guys
No,
ever do
thank
that?
you.
No.
I can't do that.
Everyone's got a different name for it. And you would have someone who was a timekeeper, and you'd have shots of beer.
Yeah, but I can't mess with this format, and we
and
are
let
off
me
track
tell you,
right now.
well, I think it's relevant. I'm not sure.
It is relevant.
But let me tell you something. You get to about 35 minutes in that damn game, and this is exactly what happens.
We don't need that.
So it
though.
is relevant.
Because
This is
the
how it
timeline
happens.
Here's
goes
the thing.
to shit.
And
and
every-
you're like, did we
after
forget
40
to drink?
minutes, Brian and I fall to pieces, and
It's
I don't
the
know.
end of the
it's always
show.
like
The end of the show is always a train wreck.
we just beer behavior. We were going to talk. We can just do this real
Just
quick.
real
We were going to
fast.
talk quickly about THC beverages,
Yep.
them coming into Illinois.
Yep.
What makes Illinois a little bit different than other Midwestern states that are starting to, I'm going to say adjunct, which I know is not the correct term to use, but it's the best one that I can
Oh,
think
to
of
make-
right this
to make-
minute.
Making
'cause,
hard seltzers
again,
with
I'm very distracted.
THC.
Well, I'm not a law expert. So the Illinois Craft Brewers Guild, which is our trade organization,
Please don't write me another nasty note.
we do a quarterly meeting.
Yeah.
And the one we did in the winter, we had our lawyer that we retain and another lawyer, and we were talking about this idea. So here's the short version as far as I understand
Which
it.
is what we need.
So first of all, the template for this is the state of Minnesota,
Yes.
which didn't have, as far as I understand, nothing was legalized, THC, weed, nothing. And then, I don't know, 2022, I don't know, 2021, they legalized it. And they actually have it's pretty cool the way they're doing. They have a very efficient system, the way they do stuff. Because I signed up to their email list just to see how they do things. It's pretty interesting. But basically, long story short, they kind of said, all right, we're going to do all this shit. And one of the things was industrial hemp.
Yes.
And industrial hemp means, so the federal government in 2018, if I remember, they did this farm bill, and they said we want to be able, farmers should be able to grow industrial hemp. and not be considered marijuana or cannabis, which is illegal. Well, the difference is
Rope,
the weight,
not dope.
the amount of THC per pound in the plant, right?
Right.
So hemp-derived THC, which
Right.
is delta 9, which has to do with the molecule, and then there's delta 8, which you don't want to mess with. Delta 9 is legal under the federal government as far as legal. The
Right.
DA is not going to come down and take
Right.
everything from you. So in Minnesota, what they did was a lot of breweries started making THC seltzers. No alcohol. Number one, you cannot have alcohol mixed with THC
Right.
at all, no matter where you are. Don't even think about it. So they take an emulsion, which means it's been mixed together, like mayonnaise is an emulsion, right?
Yeah.
So otherwise it separates. So you have to have something that makes molecules stick together. Sorry, I'm getting nerdy, and not separate. And that's where this THC Delta 9 emulsion stuff comes out. And you mix it in a tank with flavoring
Right.
and water, and then you carbonate it. And
Yes,
it-
everyone that likes
and it's
seltzer,
actually
you're drinking
really
flavoring
easy
and
to
water.
make.
Yeah.
But there's quality control things and then you got to make sure it's tested and make sure that it's within what you're saying it is. So Minnesota kind of got it figured out really well. So the problem in Illinois is cannabis is legalized,
Right.
which you would think would be a good thing.
It should make it easier,
but
right?
the problem is
It muddies the water.
so now breweries want to be able to do this, and so far we can. Our lawyers said there's nothing that makes it legal. There's nothing that's codified to make it legal, but it's definitely not illegal. All right, so we're going to be testing the waters. So of course in Chicago, which is a really fun place to do business.
Sure.
Drives me crazy. I love this city as my soul, but it drives me crazy. My kids are born here, my house is here, my business is here, but it still drives me crazy. But and you got the dispensary industry that's going to get in on this because they've had to pay all this money for these licenses. So what we're looking to do, and we are going to be doing it, is make a THC seltzer beverage. But the key is, in my opinion, is we're going to make it low dosage levels.
Okay.
Right? If you want the high dosage stuff, you go to the dispensary.
Go down the street.
Right.
We're not interested in that.
Okay. You just want something that's
Right. We're a beer company. Maybe someday it changes. Maybe we become a beverage company.
Absolutely not.
I don't know.
Absolutely not.
Well, here's what I'm going to say. After COVID, the doors got to stay open, right?
Yep.
So,
Who
but
you
we
talking
don't. But yeah, I know. But you just don't know what's going to happen,
No,
right?
it's-
And
exactly
people
right.
are drinking less beer.
Yep.
Craft beer growth has stalled. A lot of us are lucky to even still be here. So the THC seems like a nice way to have some additional revenue, create a beverage. But there's all kinds of things like you don't like in Minnesota, it's not on draft,
Right.
and you drink it in a can, and there's probably a limit in how you do that. There's all kinds of stuff. So that is the next kind of thing that's coming. It's going to come whether people want it to
Yeah,
come or
and
not.
it sounds like you guys are doing your due diligence and making and
Hopewell,
figuring
Noon
it out.
Whistle have really already started. They've already started down that road, and they're friends of ours, and they've been gracious helping us with some of the stuff. And I've got some, I've got some good connections with it now. So we're going slowly
Nice.
because I want to make sure it's done right, and there's insurance issues you have to look into and all kinds of stuff. And we're working with, somehow I got sucked into a few years ago into the political machine of Chicago and
boy.
Springfield, which is actually fun. I mean, I actually enjoy working with these people, but making sure that our interests are protected and not destroyed by other people who don't want us to be able to stay in business. So,
Well, this has been a fascinating conversation, which we could keep going for hours, but
We sure-
Cody
I mean,
is
clearly.
already typing more horrific messages
That
on the
one's not
computer.
bad. That other one
we're a
So-
minute and
scared
40
me.
seconds, and I have to pee, so you should
Yes.
put that on there.
So let's-
That's more important than any of that bullshit.
Let's let Gary P. When I thank Gary Gulley once again for being here. He is the man behind Alarmist Brewing, 4055 West Peterson Avenue in Chicago, in the very fancy Sauganash neighborhood
Established
of
1922.
Chicago. Brewery opened in 2017. AlarmistBrewing.com.
The tap room opened in
The tap room
2017.
opened,
The brewery
sorry.
opened in 2015. Jesus Christ, Google.
I I did. You guys should have some more content. I was busting my ass to get the prep work.
You know what? That's a good point. I need to add that to the website.
You need to add a lot. Yeah,
I'll do that.
You need some more info.
Moving
but
on,
Gary's
because
here,
everybody's
and
bladders
Gary
need to be
has to
bladder.
pee. But if you want to support the show so we can keep brewers until their bladders are exploding, you please need to buy our merchandise at craftybrewerspod.com. We have shirts, hats, all the usual stuff, and then we have phone cases, other merch, blah, blah, blah.
We do.
Every purchase you make directly supports the show, helping us cover all the costs. And, that keeps the computers going so Cody can type us more nasty messages. Today's featured merchandise, Katherine?
The Decoction t-shirt. We've got a super soft Decoction shirt. Decoction is a lagering process. Tune into the Goldfinger episode if you want to hear so many minutes about Decoction. It's a great little t-shirt. It's actually quite wonderful. It's a washed out rooster with just the word Decoction. Because, roosters.
What about
Decoction.
social media?
Social media. Please follow along. Crafty_brewers_pod. That is us on Instagram. We've got merch posts and we've got behind the scenes stuff. We've got all of our things there. Follow along.
And if you are a brewer who wants to wet their pants.
question.
Oh, yes, Gary.
I have a question. What do you call these things on the?
These are mic
Mike
flags.
Mic flags.
Mic flags.
And you guys have your own? Do you sell your own mic flags?
Not yet.
I think you're missing out. Hello, TikTok. I mean, come on.
For other people who want to do this podcast and steal our name, they just want to be imitators.
That's why I'm terrible at marketing.
So,
Don't worry,
yes,
I'm not awful at it. I'm happy to help and sell mic flags to
mic
everyone.
flags. Everybody
Anyway.
should have a mic flag.
Mic flag. I never knew that.
Yeah. So see,
Another
if you're a
star
brewer who wants to share your story and also learn interesting facts about audio-visual
interesting.
equipment, then please reach out. You can email us craftybrewerspod@gmail.com. We promise we only keep brewers who are fascinating long enough so they wet their
You
pants.
smelling it?
Drop us if you know a brewery and you'd like us to.
flavored mic flags?
Yeah, they're great. They're chocolate,
No,
and then it's like scratch and
absolutely
sniff.
not.
They do.
Wow. You guys should really. The snozberry
For
tastes
Crafty
like
Brewers,
snozberry.
we're all us. Goodbye.
Today's episode of Crafty Brewers was produced and edited by Cody Goff.
Snarkily
For-
typed by,
For Crafty
Gross.
Brewers,
Gross
she's
face.
Katherine Vallow.
I think. Oh, he's Brian Noonan. I'm
Do
pretty
you
sure.
have any parting thoughts? that
You know what?
haven't shared?
Honestly, I've got so much. No, my brain is literally oatmeal right now. So my parting thought is, you are great. Don't lick any other people's mic flags. Don't do that. Only lick our mic flags.
Gary's going to pee,
and that's
we're
it.
going
And
to
Gary's
say,
gonna go pee.
Oh,
see you next time.
Bye. Thank you guys so much. I'm going to dry this